Welcome everyone again. You're at the Gut-Brain Connection Information with Dr. Trinh today. We are excited to be here. I'm Kristen A, and I'm the Vice President of Sales and Marketing for ECS, which is Episcopal Communities and Services. And our guest speaker today is Dr. Trinh. He's our Chief Medical Officer at the Healthy Brain Clinic. And Jennifer Sonnen is our moderator, so she's working the slides and we'll all three help with the chat. So this is being recorded, so you'll get a recording after the session. If you have any questions, feel free to chat. If you have your cursor and highlight your screen, there should be a little bar of icons. There's one that says chat. Go ahead and click there and put all participants, and we'll be reading your questions, and Dr. Trinh will address those as we go. So before we get started with Dr. Trinh, I'm just going to talk a little bit about your host. So ECS is your host today for the webinar. And ECS is Episcopal Communities and Services, like I said. As a nonprofit organization, we don't have any shareholders to pay out, so we reinvest our profits back into our communities, which is fantastic. We have our residents, we like to say that we're resident-centered, staff-supported. Our residents are very involved in our communities and the direction that we take. They are on committees. We even have residents on our board of directors. We have about 600 residents today with 500 employees. And our properties, we have 3 life plan communities and 1 rental community in our portfolio, and this is where they're located. So we've got the Canterbury in Rancho Palos Verdes. We have Montecedro, which is in Altadena, just right outside of Pasadena. The Covington in Aliso Viejo. Those are the 3 life plan communities. And then we have a rental property, 12 Oaks in Glendale. So we're proudly serving for 100 years. We're celebrating our anniversary this year. So we're excited about that. Our organization was based and founded on really 4 commitments, and that being choice. Our residents, we like to say they have choice of accommodations that they live in, activities or committees that they serve on, dining, there's choice there, there's personal care. We have choice custom care. We bring care to residents in their home, which is a little different than most communities. Creativity to pursue your passions or discover new ones in our communities. And then the connection to family and friends and neighbors and the community at large. And then the confidence that your needs will be met now and in the future. All of that is a foundation of our holistic approach to health, wellness, and well-being. And over the decades, ECS is involved in a leading nonprofit organization in our industry. We proudly offer a broad spectrum of care and services to foster good health, fulfillment, spiritual well-being in the lives of older adults. And as James Rothrock, our president and CEO, says, that better senior housing makes better communities for all of us. We believe that that's true. At ECS, our residents design the lifestyle of their choice, as I said before, with the choice, and we take pride in providing the freedom and the flexibility for them to do so. So if you want any additional information, please visit us on our website. There's contact information at ecsforseniors.org. So again, thank you for letting me share our little commercial here today. But I am now going to introduce Dr. Trinh, who is, as I said, the Chief Medical Officer of the Healthy Brain Clinic. He's a board member for the Alzheimer's Association of Orange County. He's a physician with Memorial Care and is a medical missionary with Tongue Out Medical Missions. He also is a keynote speaker. We've had him several times, so he's a regular for us, and a best-selling author and host of Health Talks with Dr. Trinh, which can be heard weekly on Orange County Talk Radio. Dr. Trinh, interesting, originally was from Vietnam. He evacuated with his family as a refugee in 1975 on one of the last U.S. helicopters. At age 5, alongside with his siblings and mother, he spent time in U.S.-sponsored tent cities in Guam and Oceanside until his family was finally sponsored by a church in Seal Beach. Dr. Trinh decided to pursue medicine when he had the opportunity to be mentored by a physician in his high school mentorship program. The physician was the medical director for the Orange County Department of Public Health, and provided Dr. Trinh the opportunity to learn about healthcare, which inspired him to become a physician, and we are glad he did. Over the years, Dr. Trinh has developed a passion for educating his patients and the community. He provides numerous lectures on a variety of health topics throughout Orange County. Actually, this is the second lecture today. In his early days of practicing medicine, he became frustrated with the limited medical treatments available for Alzheimer's. He is deeply involved in all aspects of Alzheimer's care, including clinical trials, which he'll talk a little bit about. Dr. Trinh focuses on the overall health of his patients with a primary focus of preventing Alzheimer's. It's very preventative. He believes it is important to teach his patients about the progression of the disease and diagnosis in its early stages. As he just told me, when we're still having that conversation, that's when you want to know. His approach centers around prevention, diagnosis, and the treatment of Alzheimer's. Dr. Trinh has also established a nonprofit called Tongue Out Medical Missions, where they travel to various countries to treat a variety of medical conditions for children in need. And we are honored to have him. And so with no further ado, Dr. Trinh, it's all yours.
All right. Thanks, Krista. Thanks, Jen. So what we're going to talk about today is something that has been more popular in the last few years in the research community, but not just the research community, in the community in general, and that is the connection that we've seen between our gut health and our brain health. How many of you guys have heard of the gut health, brain health connection? Type in yes if you heard about that connection between the gut and the brain. I'm curious, how many of you guys have heard about it? Type in yes if you've have heard about that connection between the gut. Okay, most of you guys, huh? Got a smart group here, somewhat. All right, cool. Yeah, what we've learned is this, is that the brain is not isolated to the brain, right? What we do to our body affects our brain, and what we do to our brain actually affects our body as well, so that it's not isolated. And the reason we're bringing up the issue of gut health is that we're seeing in research that's being published that we can determine the health of your gut now. Do you have a healthy gut or a non-healthy gut? And not only that, we're starting to learn that when it comes to gut health, in our gut, in our body, we are not alone. What does that mean? What I'm talking about is that we live with viruses, bacteria, fungus. So we live in a microcosm where our cells, the human cell, right? And we're all made up of cells, right? We have eye cells, nose cells, body cells, organ cells. Our cells, for every cell you have a lot more other cells that is not part of your body, meaning viruses, bacteria, and other, microorganisms that lives with us. How many of you guys have heard of a term called the microbiome? Anyone heard of the term called the microbiome? Type in yes or no, whether you've heard about that or not. The microbiome. I got some yeses. I got a little bit more yeses than nos. So can someone tell me what the microbiome is? What does it mean, the microbiome? What does it mean, guys? Type in your answer if you know, or if you want to take a guess what the microbiome is. Any thoughts on that? Does anyone know what is the microbiome? All right. Any thoughts on what the microbiome is? And okay, Wendy says environment within your body. Denise got bacteria. Clifford, good and bad bugs. Athena, okay, a mix of bacteria in your butt. Oh, okay, and your gut. Got it. Microscopic. Okay, that's a good. Yeah, so the microbiome is basically all the other bugs that live with us. That's our microbiome, okay? And the reason I talk about that is that when we talk about gut health, we're really talking about the microbiome and how that influences our gut health. Yes, Steve, no worries. I see all the answers and I'll tell it for you. Steve says he can't see anyone else's answer, and that's okay. So here's something interesting that you may not realize. We're all made up of human cells, right? The human body is made up of human cells. And what's interesting, now that you know that we live in our body with other bugs, bacteria, viruses, and fungus, did you know that for every human cell that you have, for every human cell that I have, I am outnumbered by 10 bug cells. For every human cells that exist, I'm outnumbered by 10 microorganisms that live with me. So we're actually outnumbered by the bugs. Did you realize that? We're outnumbered by the bugs. 1 out of 10. Does that scare you guys? Yes or no? That you're outnumbered by the bugs. For every human cell you have, there's 10 bugs that live with you, right? So let me give you good news, bad news. Good news is that, well, bad news is that it sounds scary, that you got 10 bug cells for every human cells you got. The good news, though, is that most of the bugs are friendlies. Most of the bugs, most of the viruses, bacteria, fungus, they're friendlies. They're not out there to wipe you out. Okay, does that make sense to you guys so far? That most of the 10-to-1 ratio, most of them are friendlies. Most of them live with us in a symbiotic environment. What does that mean, symbiotic, right? It's an environment where there's mutual benefit. Why do the bugs live with us, right? Why do the bugs live with us? They live with us because, first of all, we feed them, right? The food you eat, the stuff that's in your body, they kind of eat off you and your food, right? We feed them, but they do have a good purpose of why many are with us. In that, and we're going to go over that. What is the purpose of these bugs? And the other thing you should know is this. Let's talk real quick about the gut. Where does the gut start? Where does the gut start in our body? Type in your answer. Where does the gut start? How do we define the gut, right? How do we define the gut? Wendy says mouth. Edward says stomach. Pisa says mouth, stomach. I got between mouth and stomach here. That's right. The gut starts in our mouth, right? So the gut starts in our mouth, and then it goes down into our esophagus, and then it goes into our stomach, and then from our stomach, right, it goes down into the small intestine, and then after that, the large intestine, and then the rectum, the anus, and out the other side. So our gut is one long tube. Okay, our gut is one long tube. Does that make sense to you guys? If that makes sense, type in yes. That our gut is one long tube, and that tube starts at the mouth and it comes out the other end. Very cool. All right. So that's our gut, right? One long tube. So along our gut, all along our gut, of the total amount of bacteria that lives with you, okay? The total amount of bacteria that lives in your body, did you know that 90% of that, 90% of the bacteria that lives in your body lives in your gut? 90%. Crazy when you think about it, that most of the bacteria that lives in our body actually lives in our gut. 9 out of 10, right? And so that's interesting, why 9 out of 10 bacteria would live in your gut. Did you also know that your immune system, right? Your immune system has a lot of immune cells, right? The white blood cells and all that. These are immune cells. Of the total number of immune cells that make up your immune system, did you realize that of that total, 70% of the immune system is in your gut. 70% of that immune system is in your gut. Crazy. Now, let me ask you this. Why is 70% of your immune system in your gut? Why isn't it like all over the place in your blood and everywhere else, right? Your heart, your lungs, your brain. Why is 70% of our immune system in our gut? Does anyone know? Take a guess. Any thoughts on that? On why 70% of our immune system is in our gut? Any thoughts on that, guys? All right. Deanne says we are what we eat. Oh, that's interesting. That's absolutely true too. Okay. Douglas says because it's exposed to the rest of the world. Linda says because it's where things come in and out. Marianne says the body wants to protect itself by killing the bacteria that's in our gut. Wow, that's a good one. All right. Ida says, do all diseases start at the gut? Yeah. So 70% of our immune system lives in our gut to protect itself from the 90% of the bacteria that lives in our gut, right? So most of the bacteria in your body, 90% of that is in your gut, which is why most of your immune system is sitting in your gut, keeping an eye out on the bacteria that's in your gut, making sure that the bad ones aren't taken over. Does that make sense to you guys? So most of our immune system's there because most of the bacteria is there, okay? Let me ask you this. So our gut has a lot of bacteria, viruses, fungi, and all that, right? That lives in our gut. We call it the microbiome. The other word we use for it besides microbiome is gut flora. Gut flora is the other term that we use. What is the purpose of the microbiome? Why is 90% of your bacteria sitting there? What is it doing there? What is it doing there? Does anyone know why all these bacteria are sitting around your gut? What is it doing there? Does it have a purpose, a reason that it's in your gut? Any thoughts on that, guys? Edward says fermentation. Ew. Am I being fermented currently, Edward, as I sit here? Am I being fermented? Priscilla says it helps to digest and change chemicals. Yes, absolutely correct. So there's 4 functions of the gut bacteria. Function number 1 is that it helps to break down food and digest food. Absolutely. That's just function number 1 out of 4. What's the 3 other function, guys? What is the 3 other reasons the gut bacteria is there? Athena says defend us. Good. Yeah, that is reason number 2. So the gut bacteria, the good gut bacteria, not the bad ones, but the good ones, they help to strengthen the lining of the gut. Okay, so our gut's like one big lining, right? One big barrier against, that allows nothing to go through, right? So if you're eating food and you're eating, let's say, nuts, right? If you're eating nuts, and so as I chew in this nut, I'm starting my gut process. As I swallow, right? As I swallow my nut, and obviously you can tell I'm a little nutty from all the nuts I eat. As I swallow the nut, right? The nut goes down into my stomach, right? And as it sits in my stomach, it surrounds the nut, right? So the lining of the stomach and the lining of your entire gut prevents the bad guys from coming through, right? So if there was any bad guys in this nut, it would stay in the stomach, it would stay in the intestine, and it can't get through into your bloodstream. So function number 2 of the microbiome and of your gut bacteria is to strengthen the lining. Strengthen the lining, okay, of the gut. There's 2 other things, there's 2 other functions that your microbiome does. Function number 3 is that it breaks down toxins. It breaks down toxins. Not everything we eat is healthy, right? Not everything we eat is healthy. So if we ate stuff that's not healthy, the gut microbiome breaks it down if it's toxic. It tries to detoxify, right? Tries to detoxify with that. So that's function number 3. So for example, this is for example purposes only, right? This slice of pizza, for example purposes only, right? If I ate the slice of pizza and it's toxic, right? It's not good. Not good, especially with the crushed pepper. It's too spicy. It's really not good. So this is for example purposes only. If I ate that slice of pizza and it's toxic and it can hurt my body, the gut bacteria helps to detoxify. It helps to detoxify and break down that toxin, okay? And so that's function number 3 of our gut bacteria. The last function, function number 4, is that our gut, believe it or not, our gut helps to produce certain vitamins and hormones and things of that sort, and enzymes with that. Our gut actually helps, our gut microbiome, the gut bacteria, helps to produce certain hormones and certain proteins and neurotransmitters and things of that sort that is needed by the body. Let me give you an example. How many of you guys have ever had your vitamin B12 level checked? Type in yes if you've ever had your vitamin B12 level checked in your blood. Type in yes if you ever had a vitamin B12 level checked. Yeah. All right. Some yes, some no. Okay, I got a few yes. So did you know that if you were deficient, anyone ever had a deficient vitamin B12 level? If you were deficient in vitamin B12, what that tells me is that your gut microbiome wasn't doing its job, right? It tells me that your gut microbiome probably wasn't all healthy. Maybe it was sick, it wasn't functioning effectively, because you need good gut bacteria to make vitamin B12. Interesting, isn't it? You need good gut bacteria to make vitamin B12, right? Along with other vitamins and things of that sort. So the 4th function of your good bacteria is to actually help make a lot of vitamins and proteins and enzymes and things of that sort. That's why that's why this is such an important topic, because we can do things to harm our gut bacteria, right? We can do things to harm our good gut bacteria with that. Let me ask you this. How can you harm your microbiome? What are some things that you can do to harm the microbiome? Does anyone know? What are some things that you can do to harm the microbiome? Okay, anonymous attendee says alcohol. Yep, alcohol can destroy your microbiome. Smoking or smoke, yes. Absolutely, Wendy. Ida says sugar, yes. Therese says eating too much processed food, yes. These are things that can damage your microbiome. Priscilla says eat sugar. Clifford says antibiotics. Yeah, antibiotics, Athena. Yes, antibiotics. Lawn medicine. So yeah, exposure to pesticides. Absolutely, you guys are correct. You guys are correct. There are many things that can harm our microbiome. And let me give you an example. I'm sick, I take an antibiotic, right? But unfortunately, most of the reasons that we take antibiotics today aren't necessary for the right reasons. Sometimes we have folks taking antibiotics for the wrong reason. For example, if you get the flu, fever, cough, right? Can antibiotics cure the flu? Can antibiotics cure the flu? You guys know? So anytime you have a viral infection and you're taking an antibiotic, you're taking it for the wrong reason, right? That includes COVID, that includes the flu, that includes 90% of bronchitis. Did you know that 90% of bronchitis is viral? 90% of bronchitis is viral. And we are a country that wants a pill to fix everything, right? I'm sick, give me a pill, right? And so sometimes we're taking it for the wrong reasons. And if you're taking antibiotics for the wrong reason, not only does antibiotics kill the bad guys, antibiotics also wipe out the good guys. It's called your microbiome, right? It's called your microbiome that is wiped out. And when we wipe up our microbiome by the food that we eat, by the pesticides, the sugar, right, the junk, the slices of pizza for, just for example purposes, of course. Anytime you destroy your gut bacteria, you lose the 4 functions. You lose the 4 functions that you need. You lose the function of adequate digestion. You lose the function of breaking down toxins. You lose the barrier protection, right? And you lose the ability to make the right, vitamins and B12 and different things that the brain needs. This is why it's so important, guys, to understand gut health, because there are so many things that we can do that can mess up our gut health, right? There's so many things we can do. And when I talk about antibiotics, I'm not just talking about being sick and taking an antibiotic. How many of you guys are like me, where you enjoy a medium rare steak? How many of you guys enjoy a medium rare steak? Type in yes versus no if you enjoy medium rare steak. Okay, I got some steak lovers here. Steve Wilburn joined the steak club. Wendy joined the steak club. Teresa's in the vegetarian club. Patricia likes steak. Okay, good. I'm outing you guys, right? The steak eaters here versus the vegetarians. I see you here. So if you're eating a medium rare steak, are you just eating a medium rare steak, guys? Are you just eating a medium rare steak? Yes or no? When you're eating your medium rare steak, what else are you eating with that? Okay, Wendy says you're eating what the cow eats. Absolutely. So if the cow ate grass and the grass was sprayed with pesticides, right? You're not just eating a medium rare steak, you're eating what the cow ate. Pesticides, insecticides, whatever junk the cow ate, right? You're eating. You're also eating what's pumped into the cow. What do we pump into our cows these days? What do we pump into our cows these days, guys? Well, with that, right? We pump antibiotics into our cows. We pump hormones into our cows. And so think about it, guys. If you're a steak eater, if you're a beef eater like me, right? We're not just eating a steak. We're eating hormones. We're eating pesticides. We're eating insecticides. We're eating antibiotics, right? And we just made the connection between antibiotic exposure and poor gut health, right? We made the connection between antibiotics destroying not just the bad bacteria, it destroys the good bacteria. And yet, even if we're not taking a prescription of antibiotics, the antibiotics, guys, is in our food. It's in our food. It's in the beef we eat. What about the chicken, right? Now you got to look at the label on the chicken. 5 years ago, when I bought chicken at the store, I didn't have to think about the label. Why do you have to look at it now to see if they got antibiotics or hormones? It's crazy, isn't it? It's crazy, really, what we're doing into our food with that. So it's not just beef, right? We may be eating chicken that's got antibiotics and hormones. And so anytime you're eating food and that food, that animal, right, that meat was fed and pumped in hormones or antibiotics, you've got antibiotic exposure, guys. And if you got antibiotic exposure, what does it do to gut health? What does it do to gut health if you got antibiotic exposure? Right? We're destroying our gut health. We're destroying the bad and the good bacteria, especially the good ones. And if you mess up the good bacteria, right? If you mess up the good bacteria, you lose the 4 functions. food digestion, toxin breakdown, protecting the gut wall, right? And making the vitamins and hormones that you need. So absolutely. Dave says, what about fish? Yeah, what about fish? Hopefully you're eating fish that's wild and not fed any junk, right? I don't know about the farm fish. What do they do to the farm fishes? Do they feed it antibiotics and hormones? I'm not sure with that, right? Mercury poisoning, different things of that sort. And so what we're seeing today is a huge problem with gut health in society. How do we know that? We know that because we're realizing that a lot of what is protecting the brain comes from your gut. Okay, what do I mean by that? What I mean by that? Mary says, drinking liquid while eating, does it affect your digestion? I guess it depends on what you're drinking, Mary. You could be drinking water, right? Or you could be drinking beer. Really depends on what you're drinking and how that affects your digestion overall with that. But let me talk real quick and pivot to the brain. Okay, let's pivot to the brain and let's connect everything together. Your brain, my brain, runs on neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters are different, I don't know, we can call it hormones or proteins in your brain that help your brain to function correctly. Does anyone know some examples of a brain neurotransmitter? Does anyone know of any examples of what a neurotransmitter in the brain is? Type in any examples if you remember any. Right. Carolyn says serotonin. MF says serotonin. Yes. John Young, dopamine, yes. Denise says acetylcholine. Wow, that's a smart one. Neurotransmitters, neurons is basically our brain cells. Lynn says GABA. Yes, Priscilla says dopamine. You guys are one smart group here. You've named it all. You named it all. Most of the lectures I do on this, most of the crowd don't remember most of these stuff. But yes, so let's take one at a time. Serotonin. What happens if you don't have enough serotonin? Anyone know? What happens if you don't have enough serotonin up here? If you have a deficiency? Does anyone know what serotonin is for? Why serotonin is there in the brain? Any thoughts? Okay, Athena says depression. Wendy says you're angry. Teresa, okay, all right. Most of you guys got it right. The lack of serotonin leads to depression. Okay, the lack of serotonin leads to depression. It's one reason why the popular antidepressants we have today, Paxil, Prozac, right? These popular antidepressants, what they do is that they increase the serotonin levels in your brain. Okay, so serotonin affects depression. Very interesting, isn't it? What about dopamine? Does anyone know what dopamine does? Does anyone know what dopamine does? Any thoughts on that? All right. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter that triggers euphoria or a sense of feeling good, Lynn says lack of it causes Parkinson's. Yes. If you don't have enough dopamine that is made at a part of the brain called the substantia nigra, it leads to Parkinson's disease. But dopamine helps merely with the euphoria, the I feel happy, right? Part of the brain. For example, what are some examples of a dopamine rush? How many of you guys like ice cream? Anyone here like ice cream? Type in yes or no. What are some of your favorite ice creams? What are some of your favorite ice creams, guys? Any favorite ice creams here? Anyone know? chocolate, rocky road. Okay. Vanilla, pistachio, gelato. Dairy Queen. Okay. I thought I read Dirty Queen. Okay, Dairy Queen. Frozen custard. Okay, you guys are good with that. Yeah, so when you have your first taste of ice cream, that first lick of your favorite ice cream, you get that rush, right? You get that rush in your brain, and you get that wow flavor. That's a dopamine, right? That's dopamine allowing that. That little rush that you feel, wow, your favorite ice cream could be your favorite cookie, could be your favorite piece of chocolate cake, right? That wow sensation, that's dopamine. Okay. And John Young basically has a very good definition. A neurotransmitter allows electrical cells to communicate, right? It allows your brain cells to communicate with that. And so dopamine acts with that sense of happiness. Without dopamine, you're like blah, right? And without serotonin, you're depressed. Okay. So that's another neurotransmitter in our brain, guys. Here's another one neurotransmitter some of you guys have heard of or may not. Have you heard of GABA? Have you heard of GABA? GABA. Anyone heard of that before? GABA? Yeses or no? All right. Some yeses, a lot of no's, a lot of okay, kind of half and half here, 50%. What does GABA do, guys? What does GABA do in our brain? In our brain, what does GABA do? Steve says it slows you down. Yeah. GABA, the lack of GABA causes chronic pain. Did you know that? The lack of GABA causes chronic pain if you don't have enough GABA, which is why there's a medication that's out called gabapentin, or Neurontin's the other name of it. And it's used for chronic pain, chronic neuropathic pain, right? With that. So that's a neurotransmitter. So our brain's filled with neurotransmitters and they all do different things. Have anyone heard of a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine? Anyone heard of a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine? Any thoughts on that? Yes or no? Have you ever heard of acetylcholine, guys? Let's see. Lots of no's, a few yeses. So more no's than yes. Interesting. Acetylcholine, what does it do? What is the function of acetylcholine? Anyone knows what acetylcholine does with that? Well, I can tell you that if you don't have enough acetylcholine, you'll have memory loss. If you don't have enough acetylcholine, you'll have memory loss. The medications that we have for Alzheimer's, donazepam or Aricept, right, the most popular Alzheimer's medication, well, all it does is that it increases the level of acetylcholine in your brain. It increases the level of acetylcholine in your brain. Marianne says, how do you spell it? Acetylcholine is spelled ACETYL and then choline, which is CHOLINE. I think acetylcholine. Sorry, I'm a Vietnam War refugee. English is not my first language. So I think that's how you spell it with that. Steve Wilburn, thank you for your service, Marine. So acetylcholine, if there isn't enough of it, right, it leads to memory loss. It leads to memory loss. So that's an important one. And here's something interesting, guys. And here's how we put it all together. First of all, my laptop says my battery is low. It's going to go to sleep unless I plug it in. All right, give me one sec. Let me plug in this laptop, which I'm speaking to you guys at. All right. I'm sitting in my office, by the way, in Long Beach at our new office called the Healthy Brain Clinic. Do you guys want to see what the office view looks like from where I'm sitting? Hold on. Here's the office view from where I'm sitting. There you go. And right across over there on that side is a hospital called the Long Beach Community Hospital. And so that's where I'm at now, most days with that. Okay, I got my laptop plugged in. We're good with that. So Linda says, how do you detect neurotransmitters? Priscilla says, how do you get your microbiome checked? So there, you can't really detect neurotransmitters, Linda, on a regular blood test. You can check for it if you're part of clinical research and clinical trials where we do stuff that's not available anywhere else, right? With that. My office here, where I'm sitting, we're doing Alzheimer's clinical trials where for folks who are candidates for our trials, we're sending them to get brain scans to look for the Alzheimer's plaque, or we're doing blood tests to look for the plaque and things of that sort. Is what I do here when I remember to do it. My memory is not that great either. But what does the neurotransmitters of your brain have to do with the gut and the gut microbiome? How do we connect all that, right? How do we connect all that? What is the connection, guys, between the neurotransmitters of your brain and your gut health? Right? How are we connecting all that? Does anyone know? Does anyone know how it's all connected? Any thoughts on that? Denise says parasympathetic nervous system. Okay, kind of. So here's something interesting. Here's something interesting you should know. So we have seen an increase in depression in the last 10 years. Even before the pandemic even hit, even before COVID came, we were seeing depression go like this, right? In the United States, the level of the depression goes up in the United States. Somebody says, how do I sign up for clinical trials? I'll give you my contact number later, okay, at the end of this. But this is something really interesting. Why is the level of depression going up in the United States of America, one of the richest countries of the world, where there's food in our refrigerator, there's a bed to sleep on, you know, and there's a home, right? There's a roof over our head. Why is the level of depression going up in the United States? Well, if you think about it, there's an interesting correlation. It's an interesting correlation. Maybe the level of depression is going up because we're lacking the serotonin that's needed for our mental health, right? Serotonin is a neurotransmitter that's in our brain. When the level is too low, it leads to depression, right? Gail says too many shootings. Yes. John says processed food. Linda says junk food. Somebody says lockdown. Yeah, even before the lockdown, right, the level of depression was going up. So I'm going to share with you something so that you'll make a nice connection. Let me see if I'm able to share a screen. Hold on, I'm going to try to share a screen. Okay, can you guys see my screen? Type in yes if you can see my screen. Type in yes if you can see my screen with that. All right. Chat box. Let's see here.
We can see you, Dr. Trinh. We can see your web browser.
Good. Okay, excellent. Thank you. So I'm going to share something with you guys that's kind of interesting. And let's ask a question. So we know that serotonin leads to depression, the lack of it, right? So let's ask this, where is
Dr. Trinh, are you going to disconnect? You go there?
No.
Okay.
Where is serotonin produced? Yeah, I won't disconnect. You guys can see it, right?
Yes.
So it's very interesting, guys. Take a look at this from the National Institute of Health, right? National Institute of Health. Serotonin, best known neurotransmitter for central nervous system and function, 95% of the body's serotonin is produced in your intestines. 95% of serotonin, guys, is produced in our gut by the good bacteria. By the good bacteria. Do you see a link now between gut health and brain health? These neurotransmitters that is required for the use of our brain is made in our gut. And we are destroying our gut on a regular basis based on what we eat, right? Processed food, junk food, sugar, pesticides, hormones, bacteria, right? We're messing up our gut on a daily basis. And as we mess up our gut, right? The serotonin isn't being made. The serotonin is not being made because we're wiping out our gut bacteria. And when the serotonin is not being made, guess what? Depression. Why is it that there is an increase in depression over the years, even before the pandemic? Think about our gut health. Think about the American diet. Think about the stuff that we're adding into our food with that, right? Does that make sense to you guys so far? Does that make sense? Melinda says, what happens when someone has leaky gut? Interesting question. How many of you guys have heard of the term leaky gut? Right? Anyone heard of leaky gut before? Leaky gut simply means the barrier of our gut, of which the good bacteria plays a role in protecting and making strong. The barrier of our gut is breaking down. And it's breaking down because we're wiping out the good bacteria with our lifestyle, right? And as we're losing the good bacteria, that barrier gets weak. And the function of the barrier is to simply prevent bad stuff from going through. As we're losing the good bacteria, we're losing the strength of the gut barrier. As the strength of the gut barrier gets weak, it starts to leak. And the bad stuff gets through. We call that leaky gut syndrome. Make sense, guys? That's what leaky gut syndrome is. Right? Does that make sense to you guys so far? This is the connection between the gut and the brain. We're destroying our gut. We're destroying our gut health. And we need good gut health to make the neurotransmitters required for the brain to function well. The lack of serotonin leads to depression. The lack of acetylcholine leads to memory loss, right? The lack of gabapentin leads to chronic pain. These are conditions that are going up over time. Alzheimer's, pain, right? Depression. It's crazy. Yes, it leaks into the bloodstream. Absolutely. Can it be reversed? So real quick, in the last 5 minutes or so that we have, I'm going to give you some recommendations to improve your gut health. Sounds good, guys? I'm going to give you some recommendations to improve your gut health. What we need to do is we need to improve the good bacteria that we have, right? The good bacteria is like your army. We need to boost the army to defend itself from the bad guys. How do you improve good bacteria? How do you get more good bacteria, right? How do you get more good bacteria? Well, you get more good bacteria through probiotics. Probiotics, right? Probiotics is basically good bacteria. That's what it is. But I'm not talking about the fact that you have to take a probiotic pill, right? You don't have to do that. I mean, I believe that food is medicine, and that what you eat should be your medicine. Did you know that you can eat foods that are probiotic foods, right? The probiotics can be in your food. So let me give you 10 different foods that will support and increase your probiotics. You guys ready? Does everyone have a piece of paper and pen to take notes? Type in yes if you're ready to take notes. Type in yes if you got pen and paper, take notes. All right. Good. All right, you guys are ready. Okay, we got 5 minutes left, right? I'm gonna give you 10 probiotics. Food, not just probiotics. Number one is yogurt. Okay, I think we all kind of know that, yogurt, probiotics. I'm not talking about the junk yogurt that's got all the sugar in it, right? There's a lot of junk yogurt out there that's not healthy. So we're talking about the yogurt that is, what's a healthy yogurt? The yogurt that doesn't have sugar in it. What are some healthy yogurts, guys? With that, yep, it's the Greek yogurt, right? Greek yogurt is a good organic health Greek yogurt. So lots of probiotics. So yogurt would be food number one. Okay, that has probiotics. Number two is kefir. Kefir, is it kefir or kefir? I'm not sure. Kefir. Anyone heard of kefir before? Anyone heard of it? Kefir is a fermented probiotic drink. It's kind of like a milk drink. It's made usually by adding these kefir greens to milk, and it ferments it. So lots of folks like kefir. With that, I don't know if I don't know where you even get it. Yeah, Kefir. Kefir, like yogurt, has a lot of good probiotics with that. Does coconut yogurt do the same as long as it's fermented? Yes. Number three, sauerkraut. Number three is sauerkraut. Any sauerkraut lovers here? Any sauerkraut lovers here? Therese says she buys at Bristol Farm, the kefir. Okay, you got some good sauerkraut lovers here. So sauerkraut, guys, is shredded cabbage that's been fermented by a bacteria that's called lactic acid bacteria. And so Linda doesn't like sauerkraut. Oh yeah, she likes it. So sauerkraut, my only memory of sauerkraut is the dirty hot dogs in the street of New York is my memory of sauerkraut. I did medical school in New York, and I was a starving student back then. So we can only, you go work in the hospitals in New York City. You don't have a lot of food to eat at home. So you go and you get these dirty hot dogs on the street. And it's probably the tastiest hot dog simply because they add the sauerkraut on top of it. Right? It's probably, the sauerkraut's probably the only nutritious part of the hot dog, by the way, with that. Okay. So number four is tempeh. Tempeh. Tempeh is a fermented soybean product. Tempeh is a fermented soybean product. It tastes kind of nutty, kind of earthy, kind of like a mushroom. I don't know if you guys have heard of tempeh before, but that's number four for those of you who liked tempeh. Number five is kimchi. Any kimchi lovers here? The only time I eat kimchi is at a Korean restaurant. I love kimchi, but that's really the only time. It's a spicy Korean side dish usually. That's fermented cabbage, I think. Yes, it's very hot, kimchi. Number six is miso. Kind of like miso as in miso soup at a Japanese restaurant. Lots of probiotics with miso. And again, miso, I think, is a fermented soybean, is what they use miso in with that. Yes, MISO, that's miso. Again, guys, this is all probiotics, right? But through food rather than taking a pill. Number seven, kombucha. Any kombucha lovers here? Any kombucha lovers here? It's a fermented black or green tea, I think. It tastes a little bit like beer. Not everyone likes it, but I like kombucha. It feels like you're drinking beer, except you feel good about it because it's healthy, right? It's healthy beer as opposed to like, Budweiser or something. But it's got kombucha is fermented black or green tea. That's what it is. And it's got lots of good probiotics. Number 8 is pickles. Pickles is essentially cucumber, right? Cucumbers. That's what pickles are. Lots of probiotics in there. Number 9 is natto. 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 Natto is a fermented soybean product. I think you can buy it at the Japanese store. It contains a bacteria called Bacillus subtilis, is the name of the bacteria that makes natto a probiotic. And lastly, there's more, but the last one is traditional buttermilk, believe it or not. There's 2 types of buttermilk. There is the traditional buttermilk and the cultured buttermilk. The traditional buttermilk is simply, I think, the leftover liquid from making butter. And so this version has probiotics. It's called like grandma's probiotics or something like that, not the other version. Okay, so those are the 10 probiotic foods, guys, that you can eat on a regular basis to keep your gut healthy, right? To keep your gut healthy. Avoid sugar, avoid processed foods, avoid antibiotics unless you really need it. Avoid junk food, avoid slices of pizza and things of that sort, right? The American diet, essentially. But what you want is you want to make sure you have probiotic containing foods, and that keeps your gut health strong. If you're keeping your gut health strong, you're making the serotonins, you're making the dopamine, you're making the neurotransmitters that's needed for your brain with that. Does that make sense to everyone so far? We're like at 3:02. Does that make sense to you guys? Type in yes if that makes sense to you guys with that. Denise says, should you add probiotics, prebiotics? Yeah, prebiotics is another big thing with that. Prebiotics is the food that feeds the good bacteria. That's like another lecture. All right, guys, my time is up. If you want to reach me at my office if you're interested in Alzheimer's, prevention and Alzheimer's clinical trial, you can simply call my office. Let me give you my number. I have to look up my phone number at my office because my memory's not that good. Let me see. Healthybrainclinic.com is our website. And my phone number at my office is area code 562-606-5999. 562-606-5999. And Bonnie says, how old are you? Bonnie, I'm about 99 years old, but I smear like probiotics on my face. It's why I look young with that. So, all right, guys, you got my phone number if you need me. God bless. And until next time, we'll see you later.
Thank you, Dr. Trinh. Appreciate it. Great job. Thank you, everyone. We'll get you a recording. Bye.